Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Peter Cleveland. I'm the president of the Broadcast Legends, and we are the hosts for your luncheon today. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, John Catchings. Nice to see you. Ahoy. On behalf of the Legends, I want to welcome you and the inductees and their families and their friends and everybody for a memorable afternoon. I especially want to thank our presenters, Fresca and Don Blue. I see Don down there. Fresca's here somewhere, I know. All right. One quick item of business, if you would. If you'd be so kind as to take that little ticket that you got with your ticket when you checked in. Would you put it on the table in front of you? It'll help the wait staff, this wonderful wait staff that we have here at the Basque. They are incredible people. And by putting that out there, it just makes their job a little bit easier and speeds up the whole process. I have a special order of business that wasn't planned, but that's the way things go. I want to present the president of the California Historical Radio Society, who is one of the sponsors of today's event, Mr. Steve Cushman, for a special order of business. Mr. Cushman.
What a great crowd. It's so good to see everybody. The place is sold out, and what a great occasion to celebrate our this year's class of the people going into Barhof. I have a kind of a medical thing that I have to rush off to, so I'm not going to speak after lunch. I just want to welcome everybody, and I want to thank Daryl and Peter for letting us present our program here at their lunches. It's always such a great opportunity to do so. Just a couple of more things, and I'll be out of here. For the first time in almost our 50-year history, CHRS will be 50 next year. We have hired an executive director, and her name is Rachel Lee, and I would like her to stand up. And she's got her assistant Liesl with her. And Rachel is taking over many, many things at CHRS, and a lot of things that I, try to do but can't always because there's too much. So she is very organized. She's very competent, and she's going to make a lot of changes in CHRS. And that's a couple of the things we want to talk about real briefly. We're instituting a Speaker of the Month program at Radio Central, and any of you people, we'd love to hear your histories. So if you'd like to put your history on video and have it go on our YouTube channel as an archive, please get in touch with Rachel, and she'll put you on the list. The first one we're doing is Bob Anderson, if anybody remembers him from early KYA and from KGO TV. Bob's 93, and we're going to be doing his video very soon. So that's one thing we're doing, and there was something else. Oh well. It's going to come. Be sure to come over and see us at Radio Central. So, and I won't leave you. I won't bother you here. I'll let you get on to your lunch and have a great program. And thanks, everybody.
In case you've never been over there, Radio Central, which is in Alameda, is an incredible place. It's like walking back 50 years into old-time radio. It's incredible. As we do at all of our lunches, we take a few moments to remember our friends who have left us since last we met. In late August, we learned the passing of Ann Fraser. For 14 years, she and Ross McGowan co-hosted People Are Talking and People Are Talking in the Afternoon on KPIX. She also worked as a specialty reporter at KPIX, Channel 5. She retired in 2000 and moved up to Oregon in 2015. It was there that she passed away December 28th, and Fraser was 83. One of the pioneers of freeform news, Wes "Scoop" Nisker, died of heart failure July 31st. He began his career at KSAN in the late 60s. His newscasts were really highly personal explorations, but never boring. They always ended with, "This is Scoop Nisker saying, if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own." The Scoop was 81. Don Gold, a native San Franciscan, was a man of many talents. From his first job at KOVR in 1955, he spent time at KGO, KPIX, Kron as a producer, a director, a stage manager. In the early 60s and into the 70s, he worked on just about every local TV variety show, from Tennessee Ernie Ford to the Russ Coughlin Show and Joe Dolan. Moving to Hollywood in 1976, he worked as a stage manager and associate director for everything from the Grammys to the Jerry Lewis telethon on Labor Day. His career took a major turn in 1979. He accepted a job as a field rep for the Directors Guild, about the time I went to work for AFTRA, a post he held for 30 years. Over that time, he had a hand in every DGA contract negotiation there was. Don Gold passed away in February. He was 90. And finally, Betty Ann Bruno, three-time Emmy Award-winning reporter for KTVU, died of a heart attack on July 30th. She began her long and storied career in 1939 as one of the Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz. True enough. She went on to Stanford. She graduated in '53. She was hired as a writer by Channel 2 in 1971, and they really got smart and made her a reporter in 1977. A job she held with distinction until she retired in 1992. She never really did retire, staying active in all manner of local activities till her passing at age 91. A moment, if you would. Thank you. Now, moving right along. Time for the Vintage Newscast. My pleasure to present Mr. John Evans and Miss Rosie Lee Allen.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Am I on?
I don't know.
I think so. I hope you're having a good time. We're going to go back to the year 1978. The reason will be obvious as we get started.
California Senator Dianne Feinstein died 2 weeks ago on Friday, September 29th at the age of 90. She was the first California woman elected to the U.S. Senate, where she served for 3 decades. Her public service began many years before, starting in 1970 as a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. After losing the mayor's race to George Moscone in 1975, Feinstein nearly gave up on politics, but then she stuck it out, only to ascend to the mayor's job after the assassinations of Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk. That happened on November 27th, 1978, and that is where we begin, as John mentioned, our historic year.
It was on the Monday morning after Thanksgiving, San Francisco Supervisor Dan White, armed with a .38 caliber pistol, talked his way into City Hall through a basement window, claiming to have lost his keys. The former cop and fireman was elected to the Board of Supervisors the year before. It was not a good fit for Dan White.
He was a conservative in a city run by liberals, Faced with that and with some business problems of his own, he resigned from the board on November 10th. 4 days later, he reversed his resignation. At first, Mayor Moscone agreed to reinstate him, but then days later changed his mind.
White made his way to the mayor's office on the second floor and opened fire on George Moscone, shooting him 5 times. He then made his way towards the supervisor's chambers, passing Dianne Feinstein's office, and she called out to him. Seconds later, she heard the shots. White had also killed Harvey Milk, the city's first gay supervisor. Feinstein ran to Milk's office. White had already fled. Feinstein put her finger in a bullet hole in Milk's head to stop the bleeding, but he was already dead.
Short time later, flanked by police and city officials, Board of Supervisors President Dianne Feinstein made the shocking announcement that to this day sends chills down the spine. Feinstein was thrust into the mayor's job, a job she would hold for 10 years.
Only 9 days before the assassinations of Moscone and Milk, the San Francisco Church, the People's Temple, rocked the city to its core. The Reverend Jim Jones led more than 900 of his followers at a jungle encampment in Guyana, South America, to their deaths by drinking cyanide-laced Kool-Aid.
Those suicides came after Peninsula Congressman Leo Ryan, his legislative counsel Jackie Speer, and a crew of journalists were ambushed on the Guyana tarmac after their visit to Jonestown. Ryan was killed, as were reporter, cameraman, and photographer. Jackie Speer was shot 5 times but survived and would go on to serve in the California State Assembly, the State Senate, and then Congress. She retired last year but recently announced that she would be running for her old job as a San Mateo County supervisor.
Well, also in 1978, an Air India Boeing 747 crashed off the coast of Mumbai, killing all 213 people on board. The cause was determined to be instrument failure coupled with pilot disorientation. And Carl Wallenda, the patriarch of the Flying Wallendas, died after falling from a tightrope strung between 2 hotels in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
California voters defeated the so-called Briggs Initiative that would have prohibited gay school teachers. It wasn't even close. The measure lost in Briggs' backyard in Orange County as well. Movie director Roman Polanski skipped bail and fled the U.S. after pleading guilty to having a sexual relationship with a 13-year-old girl. He is now 90 years old and still a fugitive living in France.
In entertainment, the 50th Academy Awards were hosted for the final time by comedian Bob Hope. Annie Hall won Best Picture, Woody Allen for Best Director, and George Lucas's Star Wars earned 6 Oscars. Dallas premiered on CBS in April of '78 and aired for 14 seasons. The episode Who Shot JR in 1980 is still the second highest rated primetime telecast of all time, second only to the MASH finale of '83.
Do you know Who Shot JR?
I don't remember.
Nobody shot him. He didn't die.
Oh, that's right. It was a dream.
It was a dream.
All a dream. Now I remember.
History was made in San Francisco as the rainbow pride flag was flown for the first time at the Gay Freedom Day Parade. And for many of us who don't know that, Pier 39 opened on the San Francisco Embarcadero.
That's where Dan White had a baked potato stand, by the way.
Oh, didn't know that. That's new information.
In sports, Muhammad Ali outslugged Leon Spinks in a rematch to become the first boxer to win the heavyweight title 3 times. The Yankees beat the Dodgers in the World Series, and the Dallas Cowboys beat the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl. I'm John Evans.
Yes, you are, and I'm Rosie Allen, and this has been Headlines from the year 1978.
Thank you.
John, Rosie, thank you. Okay, enjoy your lunch, ladies and gentlemen. The main program will begin on the other side.
All right. Is everybody having a good time? I hope you're having a good time enjoying your lunch. I'm John Evans. Nice to be here today. We've had a few people have to go home ill this afternoon, so I'm stepping in to get our program started today. I would like to introduce you to a man who Along with David Farrell Jackson, who is one of the founders of the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame, Len Shapiro is the director of the Radio Hall of Fame here in the Bay Area, and he is going to get our program started this afternoon. Give him a big round of applause, please.
Thanks everybody for coming out to a sold-out Class of 18 announcement for the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame. And today we'll honor 15 inductees and the legendary station of the year, KOIT 96.5. This will bring our membership total to 242, covering 115 years of Bay Area broadcasting. And I want to mention some of the names. All the names are back here in the back of your program as I hold up my visual aid. They're all here. And I just want to mention three of them. Sybil Harold True. She was the first female disc jockey. She was on KQW in 1909 through 1912. She would run down to Sherman and Clay on First Street to pick up records to play. Guess what? Sherman and Clay sold them out the next day. Also, we have Ernie Smith, the godfather of sportscasting in the Bay Area. He was in the 20s. He was doing everything. Oakland Oaks, hockey, believe it or not, Cal Bears, football. He broadcast one game from a telephone booth on top of Strawberry Canyon. And finally, there's Frank Cope, probably the longest-running disc jockey in the Bay Area, over 30 years. He's credited in many books as being really the first disc jockey in the United States. He was talking between records, telling jokes, and he beat Kim Vestal by 87 years doing traffic reports on the Bay Bridge. So, reviewing how we got here, the Barhoff inductees are voted in by the living members of the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame and the paid members of CHRS. And they choose those categories of radio host, sportscaster, specialty, etc. The board chooses executive pioneer, legend, and legendary station of the year. That's the board of directors of the Barhoff. So now let's celebrate the best of Bay Area talent. And here are our hosts for the day, Fresca from KOIT and KBLX, and Don Blue, Barhoff class of 2007. So come on.
Hi, everyone. Oh, come on. We're in radio. Hi, everybody. There it is. Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Broadcast Legends Luncheon honoring the 2023 inductees to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame. My name is Fresca Griarte. I know I'm kind of a new face here, so I'm just going to do a quick introduction so you kind of, I guess, kind of get to know me a little bit. So I started radio when I was 19. That was a long time ago. So 1993, so this is like my 30th year. I am the midday personality at 96.5 KOIT and also one of the morning hosts of Fresca and Rudy in the Morning on 102.9 KBLX. So just real quick, I started in Hawaii, or actually here, at Wild 107. And that was just shortly after they changed not frequencies, but call letters from KSOL to KYLD. And then I moved to Hawaii, came back when it was 94.9. I did a lot of my radio, worked my radio under Michael Martin and Jazzy Jim. Then I moved to Sacramento, did mornings there for a little bit, and then did some TV, came back, stayed at Wild for a couple years, and had some kids. And I had some offers to go into other markets, but I was like, I'm not going to uproot my kids. And as a single mom, it's kind of like, I wanted them to make sure their dad was around, and we were both around. So I did a lot of odd jobs to support my radio habit, basically. And then came back when it was 99.7, moved to other couple different radio stations, ended up at KOIT. And then some classic rock stations, and now at KBLX as well. So it's definitely an honor for me to be here because I'm looking out into the crowd going, wow, it's like just an amazing crowd, because I listen to a lot of you too, and you have all inspired me as well. Is Lori Sanders here today? I just want to give her a shout out, because listening to her when I was driving to, after picking up my kids when I was a nanny, working weekends at 99.7, just going, oh my gosh, like this woman is amazing. And then finally getting hired to do afternoons at Coit. And all of those folks that worked at the station before me, you all built that station. And that's why I'm here today at Coit. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. I also want to say thank you to Len, and also to Steve, Peter, and the South City Basque Cultural Center. And also, thank you so much again. I'm so excited to be here. But today we will be inducting 6 current and retired radio broadcasters, 1 manager, and 1 engineer. And we will also induct a group of 7 pioneer broadcasters who made major contributions to Bay Area radio in decades past and present. We also encourage all of the inductees to keep their remarks brief. No more than 5 minutes, okay? And if you do, you are going to hear this. And if you keep talking, you're going to hear this. Yeah. And no one's going to want to get gonged. So just keep that in mind, okay? We really would appreciate that. And thank you also to Bob Brown. Thank you so much. There he is, back there. And yes, our goal really is to... What time is it right now? 1:30. What time is it? 1:30. Okay. Okay, because I was like, our original goal was 2:30, but we're going to move it to 3. Okay. All right, so let's get started. So our first 2023 inductee to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame is show host Sylvia Chacon. Yes. There she is. Now, let me give you a little bit of background. I love your walkout music. This is great. It's like the WWE. All right. Sylvia grew up in Hayward. She graduated from Sunset High School and Cal State East Bay, also in Hayward. She has been privileged to have spent her entire career here in the Bay Area for the past 4 decades plus, okay? Now, Sylvia is best known for her many years at Oldies KSFO and its sister station KYAFM, and then Oldies KFRC AM and FM, and the Alameda Newspaper Group awarded her 4 times as the Radio Personality of the Year. Also, Sylvia also had a tour of duty at Star 101.3 and Kiss FM. She currently works as a show host on 98.1 The Breeze. Yes. And yeah, give her a round of applause over there. I think I have the Breeze family down there. Sylvia also served as a mentor for 25 years in the Puente program geared toward promoting Latinos to aspire to a 4-year college degree program. And one of her past 2 students is the current mayor of Hayward, Mark Salinas. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Sylvia Chacon.
Fresca, and I love your work, Fresca. I truly do. Oh my goodness, I'm going to get gonged. Mine is 7 minutes long. So I guess I'm going to start and then figure out what I'm going to cut. But here we go. And by the way, congratulations to all of the class of 2023. I am so honored to be doing this with you. So wow, back in July before the inductees were going to be announced, I was out with my K-Bay Mix 106 friends. Where are they? Love you all. Dana Jang, thank you so much. Dana is just a great guy, great radio guy. So he asked me if I was going to go to the announcements, and I said I wasn't able to make it because I was on the air that day. And I said, but if I get in, send me a text. So I forgot all about it, not expecting a thing. He sends me a text, congratulations, you're in. And I said out loud, oh, wow, no way. And then I said even louder, oh, crap. That means I'm going to have to get up and say something. So this is my oh, crap moment. My journey began a year after college. I knew I wanted to get into radio, but I was so discouraged by hearing it's competitive, it's dominated by men, there is no job stability, and you're Latina. And somebody actually laughed. It took an entire year for me to build up the courage to make my move. And they say a big part of this business is luck and timing. Well, I got lucky. I landed a summer internship at KSFO-KYA, and as the summer internship was coming to an end, the timing kicked in. A news producer left for another job opportunity, and I learned his job during my summer internship, so they offered me the position. I spent the entire year, first year of radio, in the newsroom. But man, I really wanted to play rock and roll. That's where my heart was. In the 1980s, someone had to be in the on-air studio changing every song, every commercial, every jingle. So I started out as a board operator running the music. Then I started making demos, and I would hand them over to the program director, Bill Minkler. Finally, he let me crack the mic in the middle of the night, like 2 to 4. After a little time went by, a new program director came to town by the name of Bob Hamilton. Thank you, Bob Hamilton. He gave me my first big break, put me on KYA from 6 to 10. And I was so inspired by another woman who was on the air there, also a Hall of Famer, Celeste Perry. That building... She's so talented. That building was filled with legends that continued to inspire me. Carter B. Smith, Gene Nelson, John Mac Flanagan, Sam Van Zandt, just to name a few. Sam! Alive and kicking. You're wasting my time. I only have 5 minutes. After a great 8-year run, the station was sold. Nobody survived it. I mean, absolutely nobody. They cleaned house, and that was the first time I was told, you got let go. Congratulations, now you're really in radio. I didn't know that was a thing. Thankfully, I landed at KFRC, where I spent the next 10 years working with Jack Friday, who is inducted today, more Hall of Famers, Bobby Ocean, Don St. John, my dear girlfriend, Sue Hall. KFRC was also a place where I met a young broadcast student from the College of San Mateo. He was working as an intern in the promotions department, and they called me and said he'd like some studio experience. I said, sure, send him in. I asked for a demo tape from his college station, and I was blown away. He didn't last long as an intern. He went over to 98.1 KISS FM, worked there many years, survived the format change, which is the breeze. After 20 years, more than 20 years, he is still on that frequency, 98.1. Tony Sandoval, I am so proud of you. So incredibly proud of you. Thank you for being here with me today. And I want to thank somebody else, since we just talked about KISS, my other love, Renelle, who was supposed to be here today, but she unfortunately had a fever earlier in the week, and she's still not feeling well. But I want to thank her because there are finally more women in this industry, and we're finally working longer. At 65, oh, I knew it. At 65, she just finished her 24th season with the San Francisco Giants, and on a big stage, she has shown that we mature women still have a lot to offer. We're not done yet. But this mature woman has to think a lot harder. There's a lot of tracking going on in the business, pre-recording, and it can be a beast. I was listening to my show the other day, and I said 98 minutes commercial-free to kick off the weekend, have a great weekend. Nothing wrong with that, except it aired on a Monday. A quick shout-out to Don Parker and my current PD, Ricky Filiar, and Jack Culp, who I got to work with at The Breeze as well. In closing, I'm closing. To my family, my loving siblings who have always supported me every step of the way. I could not have done this without you. My kids didn't even know they were being raised by a single mother because they always had you. To my son Sergio and my daughter Sophia, I am the proudest mother. Sergio and his wife Jenna in December are expecting my first grandchild. So Sergio and Sophia, enjoy being my #1 for a little bit longer because you are getting demoted. It's a girl, and she looks like Grandma. To my 8 nieces and nephews, 11 grandnieces and nephews. My first-born, Marisa, came all the way from Oregon. My nephew, Troy, came from San Diego. Troy swears that he got a higher grade in school because his teacher was a listener. He proceeded to brag about his aunt on the radio by saying, yeah, she works on an oldies station in San Francisco. She's super famous with old people. He's right over there if any old people want to talk to him after this. And finally, this is the last thing I want to say because it's so important. This book got me through everything. My mother gave this to me. I knew she was proud of me when she turned from her Mexican music station to rock and roll. I was living at home, and one morning I walked in at 6:30 in the morning, and you can hear Chuck Berry and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Motown coming from her room. She would fall asleep listening to her baby on the radio. And I'm glad she didn't hear this when I was giving out the Bay Area temperatures. 59 degrees in San Francisco, 60 in Oakland, and when it came to Milpitas, it was 60 degrees in Milpitas. I said that. I wanted to quit. My mom gave me this book called Don't Ever Give Up on Your Dreams. I would not be here today without this book. This is one of the happiest days of my life. Mom, we did it. Thank you.
All right, Sylvia Chacon, everyone. All right. Now, our next inductee to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame is show host Jack Friday. Now, in the early 70s, the big 610 KFRC was riding high as the top 40 leader, and Jack was one of the fabled 610 men. As listeners began to flock to FM, Jack made the jump himself, landing at KSFX and then K101 and 99.7 KYUU. He also spent time at KBLX and KLOK. Now, Jack is now retired and living the good life in France. So, ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Jack Friday. Accepting for Jack today is his friend, Bay Area Radio Hall of Famer, class of 2016, Hoyt Smith.
Disco Inferno. Disco Inferno. Is this thing on? Okay. First off, how's everybody doing today? Everybody feeling good? The last time I was up here, someone took a face plant in the floor as I was in the midst of my thanks and all of that. And I just want to make sure that doesn't happen again today. Clark? Oh, thank you. Show of hands, how many people use a different name than their own on the air? Huh? Well, today our honoree is a guy who started his radio journey as Bob Lewalski, better known as Jack Friday, obviously. He started his career phoning it in. Literally, he and his friends would get on the telephone and just dial numbers at random and say, "Is your refrigerator running?" Clever stuff like that. At 11, he found a worldwide audience with, this is beginning to sound like a Peter Cleveland obit, so I hope I can change that. 11, he found a worldwide audience. He acquired a ham radio license and talked on actual radio as W3PVK, very catchy. And eventually, his current ham call is W6ABC. Other hams would occasionally ask who the young lady was that they were talking to on the air, which would piss Jack off a lot. The first station he ever played disc jockey on was a carrier current. Did anyone ever work a carrier current station? Yeah, I did. Started out in high school doing that. And that was at a, that was at a mental hospital. Nothing funny, no. Excuse me, a mental hospital in Pennsylvania. He said it taught him all he needed to know about what was in store for him in the world of broadcasting. A bit of sadism took hold of young Bob as he began playing the then popular hit of the day by Napoleon XIV, "They're Coming to Take Me Away," ha ha. Despite the sketchy start, he started college in '67, worked weekends and weeknights at RAW, W-R-A-W, in Reading. And at 20, the bright lights of D.C. called out, so off he went to work at Weem, and he worked there as Bob Lewis. He quit that job, decided he wanted to enjoy life as a normal person, whatever that is, in his hometown, along with other things that a 21-year-old would do. Well, that didn't last very long. About 3 or 4 months in, radio legend Paul Drew asked if he wanted to come out west to KFRC. He christened the young Bob Lewis Jack Friday. And that was it. Fresh start, high energy, that voice and talent that launched. I was going to play a bit of it, but I left my phone at the table. From KFRC, he went to, as John Ketchings reminded me earlier, ABC O&O KSFX. John heard Jack and said, come on over to FM. Then on to K101, where he and I met, worked with Sam Van Zandt and so many others. And from there, oh yes, getting a little lost in my notes here. He worked for NBC O&O KYUU, SNO Radio, Clock FM, and he did me a solid when he was there at Clock FM. I was banished to Portland for a couple of years and was doing well until they discovered I was a Californian, and that was the end of that. I was like the ham at a bar mitzvah. After being fired at that Gene Autry FM in Portland, scraping by, and Jack called up and said, hey, there's this new station, Clock FM, and they need somebody. Why don't you come on down? And I did, just in time for my eldest to become a native San Franciscan. Jack moved on to Coit and KBLX to round out his studio or radio career, I should say, and along the way hosted shows on TV 20. And in between KYUU and Clock FM, Jack did some freelance reporting for the RKO Radio News Network while in Asia and in Europe. He was also up for an anchor position at RKO in New York, though that didn't happen because the network was sold to Dick Clark, and that was the end of that. He started trimming staff. After leaving the Bay Area, Jack eventually landed in his native Reading, PA, and worked for a time at the CBS O&O WOGL in Philly for a couple of years, working with some of his heroes there. And then on he went to other stops along the way, but not really in radio. He was down in Texas for a while. He was up in Oregon. He did spend some time on the air in Juneau, Alaska. One of the amazing things about Jack, personally, that I still don't understand, he didn't come from money as far as I know, pretty humble beginnings, but I remember going over to his house, and there would be a plate on the kitchen counter with a stack of maybe 3 paychecks that he had yet to cash. Mine got cashed so fast because I never had any money and owed everybody, but Jack somehow had this amazing lifestyle, always had a home of his own, had great cars that he drove around. He has the greatest gizmos and gadgets when video games were happening. He had all the latest of that stuff. Not bad for a DJ. Did very, very well, needless to say. So happy to accept this Broadcast Legend Award from my friend and colleague, Jack Friday. One more story. I forgot about this. He and I were overserved one night in 1977 and went back to K101, got up on the roof and went next door to the roof next door and took the flag of the What's It Stand consulate and turned it upside down, where it flew that way for about another 3 months before someone realized it wasn't right. They'd all been overserved. Anyway, thank you.
Do you want to hear a quick story about how I met Hoyt? This is really going to be really fast. But I used to work at Q102, and our studio was in the middle of the building. And I had just started, and I was like, oh, really jamming to, a song. And then I see this man in the window of the doorway, and how some of the studio the doors have the window. So I'm looking, and I see this man, which was Hoyt. But I didn't know who he was at the time. So I was like, he was like looking, going, and I'm like, oh, yeah, come in. It's my first week. And I was like, oh, hi, how are you? And he goes, can you turn down your music, please? Because I'm on the other side of the wall at KDFC, and I can hear Snoop Dogg. And I'm like, oh, okay, sorry. Nice to meet you. But good to see you today. All right, so our next inductee to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame is show host Kim Vestal. All right. So in 1980, Kim made history when she became the first woman to hold down a primetime slot on Bay Area radio. Yes. Kim owned the morning show at Cara in Santa Clara for 22 years, and she credits owner Bob Keeve with giving her that big break. Also, Kim later joined K-Bay, and for the past 6 years, Kim has been helping listeners navigate Bay Area freeways and highways as the afternoon traffic reporter for All News KCBS. So, ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Kim Vestal.
Traffic jam, how I hate to be late, hurts my motor go so damn, this traffic jam, time to get home, my summer be. I haven't worn heels since before COVID, so I'm scared I might fall over. Okay, thank you, bye. No. We make up for some lost time there. Let's start in the summer of 1980. Bay Area Music Radio, as Sylvia said, was alive and kicking. It was your only option. There was no internet, no cell phones, no Spotify, none of that. You got up, you turned on the radio. So many choices, and I listened to them all. I listened to, well, KFRC, Dr. Don. KYA, in the morning, Emperor Gene Nelson. Okay. KNBR, it was Frank and Mike. Gosh, who else? Don Blue, KYUU. Listen to Don Blue all the time. And in San Jose, I would listen to Beamer in the morning on KEZR. Also, Ralph Hasty and Jim Phillips on KLOK, which was a monster AM music station in the 70s and 80s. And they all had one thing in common. This has been addressed in previous conversations today. They were all men. They were all morning men. That was the job description. It was the job description in the Bay Area and all across the country. Every market. But that was about to change because at 105.7 FM, Cara in Santa Clara, sister station to KLIV in San Jose, station owner and Bay Area Radio Hall of Famer Bob Keeve just found out that his morning man, Dan Scow, would be leaving. And Bob needed to fill the slot. So he looked around at his staff, and in the newsroom was a hard-working 21-year-old gal, fresh out of San Jose State, and he thought she sounded pretty good. It was kind of funny, except for the one time she mispronounced Des Moines, Iowa, and said Des Moines. I'll never forget. I was mortified. It was my first summer. And if you've ever met Bob Keeve, he's about this tall, and he pulled over in the newsroom door and went, Des Moines! And he slammed it. And I thought that was the end of my radio career. But yeah, he forgave me, and he offered me the job. That young woman was me. So I took it without hesitation. I mean, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. I couldn't say yes fast enough. So on Labor Day, 1980, I began my gig as a morning man on Cara of Santa Clara. And he said, start her on a holiday because if she screws up, fewer people will hear. So in a nutshell, I didn't screw up. And for the next 22 years, my alarm clock went off at 4 a.m. and off to work I went. I got married, I raised a family, 2 little kids, pregnant, went through the whole thing. In the 80s, the slogans were big. You remember Where's the Beef? And Got Milk. And on daytime television, Joan Rivers was very popular, and her slogan was, Can we talk? So I thought, I need a slogan to make me stand out. I mean, never mind, I'm already a young woman doing morning drive, but I just wanted something else. So all I could come up with was get your buns out of bed. But I thought, you know, if I just say it every day, year in and year out, it'll stick. And it did. It stayed with me for 22 years, and it ended up on coffee mugs and T-shirts and billboards. And to this day, when I meet people, sometimes they say, oh, yeah, get your buns out of bed. So it works. So the tech boom, it was 1980, arrived. Silicon Valley grew up all around us. I was on the air during so many historical events. Right from the start, John Lennon was shot. That was huge. Lady Di married Prince Charles. The Berlin Wall came down. I was on the air in 1986 when the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded. And of course, we all know where we were in 2001 during the 9/11 attacks. I was on the air. So, fast forward to 2002, in the middle of the dot-com boom, and there was money everywhere, Bob Keeve was offered a mind-blowing $54 million by Hispanic Broadcasting Company to purchase Cara. Now, well, it wasn't for sale, but he sold it because $54 million, come on, right? So, and in 1972, I remember him telling me that he bought Cara over lunch at Angelo's on the Alameda, $475,000. He just wrote out a check. Yeah, so with that, my Cara days were done. But I moved right away over across town to San Jose's 94.5 K-Bay and did middays there for 5 years. Then the recession. And a bumpy stretch for all of us in radio. The Levitt family, longtime San Jose broadcasters, took me on at KKIQ in Livermore, the Valley of the Q. So that was fun. I did country at 95.3 KRTY for a while, and I even returned to KLIV as a news anchor in 2015, a couple of years before the station went dark. Uh-oh. This update brought to you by Cars for Kids. I had to get that in. In 2017, another radio opportunity presented itself with a job reporting traffic. I'm currently the afternoon drive traffic anchor on KCBS. And in closing, I was just reading Brandi Carlisle's memoir, singer-songwriter, and she says, never forget the people who helped you along the way, and there's a lot, starting with Bob Keeve, who's gone, but his daughter's here, and I really owe him everything. That's Lenore. Thank you for coming. I knew that would make me cry. George Sampson, who's here in the flesh. And he took me on in 1979 as a news person, even though I was late the very first day. I slept through my alarm. Thank you. I thought I was dead meat there. And everybody else, many of the program directors along the way, including Dana Jang, who's here and brought a whole rooting section. Everyone knows Dana. He's a nice guy until you have an ear check session with him. Ruthless. But thank you for coming. And most of all, my family, my kids, Sam Bowers, Hannah Bowers, who flew in from LA and New York. And most of all, my husband, Craig, who's been with me all along. Thank you, and I will get my buns off the stage.
What do I do? And we're going to take a picture with Len right down here. Okay. All right. Congratulations. All right, Kim Vestal. Now, our next inductee to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame is newscaster Bob Butler. Yes, Bob Butler. Now, Bob just retired after spending the past 4 decades at All News KCBS, and Bob worked just about every job there that there was in the busy newsroom, from editor to producer to street reporter. Behind the scenes, Bob was a trusted shop steward for coworkers who were members of the SAG-AFTRA union. He's also a past president of the National Association of Black Journalists and was a foundational reporter for the Chauncey Bailey Project. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Bob Butler.
One 877 cars for kids. Thank you so much. My name is Bob. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. And I say that because that means a lot to me, and it's instrumental in me being where I am today and who I am today. Got out of the Navy in 1974, and I stayed in Philadelphia, and I became a disco DJ. I went from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, and somebody there said, you ought to be on the radio. I was working for Bell Telephone. And I got a call one day, and the lady said, "Oh, you got a great voice. You ought to be on the radio." Thank you. And it really planted the seed in my head, so I came back to California, enrolled in Chabot College. When I was in Philly, on a Sunday afternoon, you're riding around getting high. All the soul stations were playing gospel music, and I just couldn't see myself getting high listening to gospel. So I listened to the all-news station, KYW. And I go to work the day after listening, and somebody would say something. I said, no, that's not right. How do you know? I heard it on KYW. I became knowledgeable listening to the all-news station. So I come back home. I go to Chabot. I'm still spinning records at parties. I was the gentle Gemini, guaranteed to satisfy, especially once I got high. And then I graduated and got my first job. But while I was there, they said, if you want to work in news, because I wanted to work in news now, not music, they said you have to work at a news station, because the music stations, the first place they cut is the newsroom. So I got my first job, and I graduated in '79 at a TV station called Soul Beat. Learned how not to do things, okay? And then I got a job. I got an internship at KBLX. I covered the election in 1980. I was down in that newsroom down there, out of the county building, wherever it was, and I was using this phone to call back to the station at KBLX to do reports. And the phone rings, and I pick it up. Who's this? It's Bob Butler. Who's this? This is Charlie Serafin at KCBS. You're using my phone. Whoa. So I got hired at KDIA, worked with some people that you might know, Bob Jones, people like that, and it was a great experience. I got fired in, I think it was August of 1980. What did you say? You were legitimate? You've been fired in the business? I was legitimate now. I'd already applied to transfer to state, so I went and got classes, did one semester there, and decided I wanted to get back in the business. So I got an internship at KCBS in the spring semester in 1981. In June, they came to me and said, "Are you still in school? No, classes are out. Then you got to get out of here. You can't be in here without being in class." So they kicked me out. At KDIA, that was an experience. They carried the Oakland A's during that period of time before I got fired. And the announcers were a guy named Monty Moore and Red Rush. Yeah, Red was something else. So anyways, I get the internship at KCBS. I get kicked out. I come back in the fall semester. I'm late on my internship one day. And the phone rings, and today it's Charlie. Same guy that I was using his phone calls me. I think I'm in trouble because I'm late, right? Hey, listen, somebody just quit. I need someone to work on the desk. You want the job? Well, shh. Coach, I just had a son. I'm thinking I need to make some money. Yeah, I'd love to have the job. But, the pay, what are you paying? Well, I'll give you as much as I can, $4 an hour. Which back then, was okay. But that's how I started at KCBS. I started as an intern, then the desk assistant, then became an editor, then the co-editor, and the producer. And in 1989, I got my first chance to be a reporter because I was at work one day waiting for the World Series to start. And all of a sudden, Loma Prieta hit. So that Saturday, I spent my whole day down at this Marina District reporting on the pain and the suffering for people who had lost their homes and everything else. And I remember at lunchtime sitting at Marina Middle School eating lunch and just started to cry. I was overwhelmed with all the trauma and the tragedy. And somebody began rubbing my shoulder and saying, "Are you okay? You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right." Look up, Nancy Pelosi. It's like, wow. So my time at KCBS, being an addict, I got into recovery in 1986. It really kind of informed who I am today and who I did while I was there. Covered some great stories, Loma Prieta. I played softball a lot. We had a softball playoff game in San Leandro one Sunday, and I wanted to get out of the work early. So I talked to CDF, Karen Terrell, about this being the mildest fire season they'd had in years. So I did this story, put it in the can, ready to walk out the door at 4 o'clock to get to San Leandro. And hey, we're getting all these phone calls from Oakland about a fire burning over there. Yeah. Yeah. It was the East Bay Hills fire. I spent the entire night over there. So I'm not going to, go on and on till the break of dawn, but I just got to say that this honor is you don't think you're really worthy. You have imposter syndrome. You don't think you're really worthy of getting an honor like this. But I did a lot of time, 42 years at KCBS, okay? And I looked in the book, and I'm joining now 36 other KCBS employees in this Hall of Fame. One last person I gotta thank is my wife Lois, who, when I was playing all that softball, she actually thought I had a girlfriend because I didn't spend all the time with her. But then she found out I was playing on 5 softball teams and tournaments on the weekend. So she began coming to my games, and then we got married, and she quit coming. Thank you so much. There's so much more I could say, but I'm just glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. Now, our next inductee to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame is sportscaster Monty Moore. In 1968, the Kansas City Athletics moved to Oakland. Play-by-play man Monty Moore joined the team in the move and brought his passion for the A's with him. So in their 5th season at the Oakland Coliseum, the A's shot to first place in the American League West and went on to win their first of 3 consecutive World Series titles in 1972, 73, and also 74. Monty Moore's voice on the radio was an integral part of the Bay Area's emerging dominance in sports. So, ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Monty Moore.
Well, good morning. Isn't it? I can tell you a lot of stories, but I don't think I could ever say nothing has made me more proud than to receive a phone call from Shapiro to tell me that I had been nominated for this award. I grew up in Hollis, Oklahoma. It's a very small little town. We didn't have a radio station, but I was enthralled with maybe broadcasting sports because I'd listened to Al Helfer while I was in bed with rheumatic fever for a couple of months. And when I got out of my bedtime and decided I wanted to go to the University of Oklahoma, my father bought me a PA system because we didn't have a radio station. we had put that PA system on top of a pickup truck. I'd drive down the main street of Hollis doing commercials for the stores that were there. So I got out of Hollis. I wanted to go to the University of Oklahoma, and I thought I'd been a pretty good basketball player. So I went out for basketball my first week at the University of Oklahoma, and I was there for 2 days practicing with the team, and Coach Bruce Drake called me into his office. He said, well, Monty, we know how badly you want to play basketball, but we also know you want to be a sports broadcaster. So what the coaches and I have decided is that you bring a tape recorder with you every day to practice, go up on the top row of the bleachers and practice broadcasting what we're practicing doing on the field. So I did that for quite a while. I finally got even with that old rascal. I married his daughter. When I graduated from University of Oklahoma, I had done at the student radio station all the sports that OU had going. I was doing a baseball game, and we had an open press box. It wasn't a box, actually a table. And I sat at this table, and right down in front of us some bleachers. While I was broadcasting an Oklahoma baseball game, a guy came in and sat down, and I said, I think I've seen that guy somewhere before. When the game was over, he called me down and said, hey, Monty, I got an offer for you. I said, what is that, and who are you? He said, I'm Leo Moore. I said, oh, my goodness, that's the guy who struck me out in the semifinals of the state softball tournament recently. And turns out, he said, I have been hired to run the radio station in Hutchinson, Kansas, or in Duncan, Oklahoma, and we'd like to hire you to come do that if you'll be my catcher during the summer. So I did that. I said, well, I've got to go into the Army on the 28th of August. He said, that's just perfect. That's the week the national softball tournament is being played, and we want you to be our catcher during that time. So what it turned out to be, I was more of a catcher than a broadcaster. When I got out of the Army, I took a job in Lawton, Oklahoma, on KSWO radio, and guess who was managing? Leo Morris. You've got a job if you'll be my catcher. So what it amounted to, I was his catcher, and then I would broadcast Sooner State League baseball games on days we didn't have a softball game to be played. When I got out of Lawton, Oklahoma, I was broadcasting a high school girls basketball game, and after the game, I went back to the station. The telephone was there for me. He said, there's a guy here on the phone wants to talk to you. His name is Vern Miner. I said, well, okay, who is it? He said, I was just driving through Lawton and on my vacation, and I heard you doing a girls basketball broadcast. We own radio station KWHK in Hutchinson, Kansas, and we need a sportscaster, and we like the way you sounded. Would you like a job broadcasting? I said, oh, my goodness, that's closer to Kansas City, because that's where I was wanting to go eventually. So I took the job there at KWHK in Hutchinson, Kansas, and one Sunday I was broadcasting the Wichita Vickers basketball games, the NIBL. And after the game, I got back home, and my phone was ringing, and I had a phone call. He said, my name is Jack Brown. I said, yeah. He said, I'm the manager of the University of Kansas Sports Network. We enjoyed listening to your broadcast today. If you'd like to be our broadcaster for KU Sports, you've got a job. He didn't finish the sentence. I said, when? So I went to the University of Kansas, and I broadcast Kansas basketball in the Wilt Chamberlain era. And then I got out of that, and somebody named Charlie Finley heard me do a basketball broadcast of the Kansas City Steers, and he was riding back to the hotel for a press conference and met up with Clark Carroll, the director of the Kansas City A's, and they were talking about the broadcast, and Finley said, I like the way that guy sounded. When they got there the next day, Finley had a press conference to announce his new manager and his ownership. And as I got on the elevator with him, he was on there. And they said, that's Monty Moore, the guy you heard last night. Finley, without ever asking me anything, said, how'd you like to be my broadcaster for the Kansas City A's? 30 years later, I was still broadcasting. Charlie Finley had a few tough nights for us, but we made 30 years in a row. I did 3,000 consecutive Major League broadcasts without a sick day. All of the thrills I've had have come to fruition here today, and I am very thrilled and very thankful. Shapiro, we said, what will I talk about? And he said, just think of something. So I've thought of something. That's what I wanted to tell you about. I'm proud of my son who is here, my daughter who is here, and it's been a special day for us. Thanks for inviting me.
Such inspirational stories. All right. So our next inductee to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame is a famed weather reporter. So when I was talking to Don Blue a second ago, and I was like saying, okay, so when I introduce him, I should say, hello. And he goes, no. Are you kidding me? You can't say, you have to kind of bellow it out. And I was like, okay, so kind of like this, hello. And he was like, okay, yeah, that's better. So I'm trying, but hello, South San Francisco. You can't hear me? Should I say that again? I'm on the spot now, okay. Hello. Is that hello, Lloyd Lindsay Young. All right. So Lloyd started his career in the Bay Area on TV, and his distinctive style and enthusiasm were such a hit in the early 80s. He added radio to his repertoire, joining the 610 KFRC morning show with Dr. Don Rose, and he was a smash. They loved him, and after a few years in New York television, Lloyd returned to the Bay Area to work in TV and radio, joining the #1 radio station News Talk 810 KGO as their lead weather forecaster. So ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Lloyd Lindsay Young.
Well, I can't resist. Hello, Barhoff. All right. First of all, real honor to be here. A gentleman I worked with, John Bristow, nominated me. Stand up, John. And you guys voted me in. I worked with John at KGO for 12 years. All right. My career is kind of like a baseball player. I started in the low minors. And how low did it go? Well, out in Barstow, California, we had an outhouse for toilet facilities. We had the Navajo hour, and I don't understand Navajo, and the phone started ringing, and the manager said, "You idiot!" I was playing it at the wrong speed. What did I know? So, anyway, I grew up in Los Angeles, listened to all the exciting disc jockeys, Bob Eubanks, Wink Martindale, and I wanted to be a hit pumper on the radio. Went down to KRLA, watched Bob Eubanks in person on his all-night show. So I started radio in 1961 and finally got to Salt Lake City in 1970 via Tucson, Las Vegas, Bakersfield, then Tucson again, then back to Bakersfield, then SLC. And with the last name Young, I was a winner. Everybody thought I was related to Brigham. So anyway, I became very good friends with one of the weather forecaster, a guy named Mark Eubank, at one of the television stations there. So I spent 6 years up in Idaho Falls. Then I went down to Indiana. And so to make a long story a little shorter, I went to work, at Channel 7, KGO television, and Dr. Don, KFRC, Jane Dornacker. Oh, yeah, Bobby Ocean, all of these great jocks. Sue Hall, who's already in the Hall of Fame. So, yeah, my experience with Dr. Don Rose, better known as Donald Rosenberg, he was an amazing guy. So anyway, I got let go from Channel 7, and I went back to New York City, and I went to work for WOR Television, Superstation, cabled all over the United States. So, all of a sudden, a gentleman who was the news director at KGO, Mr. Ken Berry, gave me a phone call. He said, you know, Lloyd, Leo Cellino isn't feeling too well. Can you fill in on KGO? So I did that several times. And then when New York City ended, I moved back into Sacramento, and Ken Berry called me up. And he said, Lloyd, we need you to do afternoons. What an honor. I got to go to work at legendary, the Big 810 KGO. So as time went on, Leo Cellino retired. And by the way, I thought he was a great guy, outstanding. Didn't see him very much, but he was a terrific guy. Oh, before I forget, I want to give special thank you to Mickey Luckoff, who ran the greatest radio station in America, the National Station of the Year. No doubt about it. And another gentleman, Jack Swanson, who you all know him. Another honorable, a great honor to work for him. So, you know, KGO Radio, 12 years, Leo retired. I did a split shift. Got up at 4:30, 4:45, at 5 to 9. Then I had the world's longest lunch hour. And then I came back to work around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, worked till 6:45. So unfortunately, that came to an end around 2011. A lot of us were let go. And, well, to make a long story short, I went back into television a little bit, did some work down in Fresno, did more television in Sacramento, but I can't express to you how great KGO Radio was. They had it all. Top-notch producers, great news people, so many people that I worked with. Gosh, the list just goes on and on. You know, I think of Gene Burns. I think of Gil Gross. I think of Dr. Dean Adele and Ed Baxter. Just a phenomenal news department. And, you know, even though it was tough to get up that early in the morning, it was my honor. Not only my honor, I was excited about it. So, you know, the Bay Area, the weather can get boring. The news can get depressing. So I thought my job, although I didn't do as much shtick as I did on TV, was to add a little bit of levity, have a little bit of fun with it, and it worked out. So, you know, what can I say? 12 years at KGO, KFRC, it doesn't get any better than that. So, once again, thank you all for inviting me. And what more can I say? But science! It was terrific.
Now that's how you say hello, just so you know. All right. So our next inductee to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame is manager Chuck Tweedle. Yes. This is a very special one for me, since I'm still at this station here. But Chuck came to the Bay Area in 1985 to run KOIT, which at the time was playing beautiful music. And he rebranded Coit as an adult contemporary station. So by 1988, Coit hit #1 and stayed in the top 3 for nearly 20 years. Coit became one of the Bay Area's perennial top billing stations, and in the 2000s, under Chuck's leadership, Coit earned 2 Crystal Awards and 2 Marconi Awards, and this summer, Barhoff named Coit as the legendary station of 2023. So also under Chuck's leadership, KDFC was named Classical Music Station of the Year twice, and one won a Crystal Award in the 2000s. So ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Chuck Tweedle.
Thank you very much to the members of Barhoff, and a little serendipity going on here. We have the new Bonneville presenting something to the old Bonneville. I'm playing the role of the old Bonneville. You know, I turned 75 last week, and I retired from Bonneville 12 years ago, and Bonneville and I left the market 16 years ago. So that was a long time ago. And I just figured, rightfully so, that I had fallen into the column of gone and forgotten. So that's okay. There's nothing like retirement. So obviously when I got a call from Barhoff that I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, I was very, very moved and very appreciative. And I really thank you for thinking of me. So I guess it proves the old adage, good things come to those people who wait. Now, rather than talk about me, which is not that interesting, I promise you, I really would like to spend the remainder of my time talking about two of my absolutely favorite things. One is a company, and two are some great people that I had the honor to work with. So, I work for Bonneville, obviously, a company I think that maybe still today, but certainly back then was often misunderstood. You know, people thought we couldn't drink coffee, and you know, we're super straight-laced and so forth. But be as it may, it was a great company. So our CEO had a mandate, and it really captured the essence of what we were all about, and that is do well and do good, and do them simultaneously. And the do well thing is the obvious, you know, generate ratings, revenue, profitability, the standard template by which we're all measured in the business. However, the do good part was make an honest and genuine contribution to the community. And we were held accountable, equally accountable for both. And I'm very proud of the work that we did. We never really sought any recognition for it, but we're indeed honored by our 3 Crystal Awards and the one from KDFC as well. I'll share a brief story with you to talk about what it was like to work for Bonneville. And occasionally, somebody would take a run at KOIT, thinking that we might be low-hanging fruit, and either with a frontal attack or perhaps a flanker attack. And I remember once when it happened, I called my boss, told him what was going on, and the first words out of his mouth were, "Chuck, what do you need?" So within probably 24 hours, the consultants were flying in, research was commissioned in the field, and most likely the following week you began to see a zillion Coit commercials on television, which I think is still the case, actually. So that is, I think, testimony to a very unique company. Not a day has passed when I was working, and to this day, that I haven't been thankful, very grateful, for working for a great privately held company that never had to dance to the tune of Wall Street. Now, I'd like to spend the remainder of my time, as I said, my life story is not that interesting, so I'd like to spend the remainder of my time giving a shout out to some amazing people. First of all, Susie Maisel, who was our second of 4 great programmers at Coit. Susie worked very hard, and it was the result of her hard work and dedication that we achieved our first #1 rank in the market. I forgot what year it was, but I now know it was 1988. So thank you, Susie. Also in programming, Jack Culp, Hall of Fame member, who anchored Morning Drive and was a master, an absolute master at staying within the boundaries of essentially a Let's Talk format, but still coming off as warm, friendly, approachable, informative, and topical. Just a great guy. And we were fortunate, preceding Jack, we had the legendary Tommy Saunders in the morning. And Tommy, I think, is one of the few guys that actually retired from radio of his own choice. So we were really lucky to have Tommy, and we were equally fortunate to get Jack for a long run after that. And if I was still there, Jack, you would still be there. Oh, it got gone. Okay. Quickly, Shingo Kamada, a great chief engineer. Roger Coriel, the best web guy in the business. As a matter of fact, when we announced that Coit was being sold, or the Bonneville properties were being sold to Entercom, it was in the morning, and that afternoon, my friend, Mickey Luckoff, called and hired Roger on the spot. So, and he went on to KGO and did great things. And finally, Elaine Wing Mole, who's here today and was one of my first assistants, and her sparkle and smile got me through some really tough days back in the early days. So thank you, Elaine. Now a shout out to the entire KDFC team, already been mentioned, but they did a great job of taking a niche format and making it appeal to a broader audience. Names like John Evans, Bill Luth, Hoyt Smith, Diane Nicolini, Rick Malone, they all were essential to the mission. And I'm really grateful to our competition because they were good, they made us better. And a prime example of that is my good pal, Harvey Stone of KBLX. Harvey built a dynasty in the market. He was always a great competitor. I mean, he was very competitive, but he was honorable and a good person, and we became good friends and even better friends in our retirement. Okay, I have to say this or I'm going to get in serious trouble. Last but not least, I thank my wife of 47 years, who has put up with me through thick and thin, Carol. Over there with her broken arm, but I really appreciate her support and guidance over the years. So this is a great honor to me. It is really a high point of my career, and I am deeply appreciative. Thank you.
All right. So our next inductee to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame is engineer Mike Schweitzer. So Mike lived and breathed radio. And he was involved in nearly every radio major station in the Bay Area in one capacity or another. So the Bay Area Radio Museum owes a great debt of gratitude to Mike. And his love of radio, memorabilia, and also vintage radio equipment is the very foundation on which the Bay Area Museum is built. If you have never been there, definitely, please go and check that out. But ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee, the late Mike Schweitzer, and accepting for Mike is his daughter, Ellie Schweitzer.
I was wondering what I was going to enter to. That was unexpected and very welcome. So I do want to start off by thanking Barhoff for recognizing my dad and his lifetime of achievements. When my dad passed away in 2011, he was talking about how he really did everything he set out to do in his career and in his life. He had a family, he had a kid, that was me. If you met my dad even in passing for a moment, I'm sure he told you all about me. The only thing he loved more than radio broadcasting was me. So I'm very sorry you all came second. He did say, however, that the one thing he really felt he missed out on was being inducted into the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame. So he has so many colleagues, friends, broadcasters who he admired here today and in previous classes of inductees. And many of his closest friends were also his colleagues. So he saw what they were doing, what they were achieving, their nominations, and I think he was a little bit jealous. So I know that today he would be so honored and so proud to have his name listed among the greats. So my dad had a reputation, as far as I know, of being sort of a broadcasting telecom wizard. I don't really know how else to put it, because the things he did were described to me by his colleagues as nothing short of magical. He prided himself on being able to fix problems from several states away by only hearing some strange noises garbled over the phone held up to a speaker, or going through a checklist that he had memorized that one of his colleagues was trying to execute on the road. And especially as his health was failing and he was able to take fewer and fewer remote opportunities, I know that his phone was still blowing up. Even on his deathbed, he was giving tech support, and it was really, truly what he loved to do. He spent 30 years in the industry, surrounded by very famous people. He got to meet the cast of Spinal Tap and interview them in character. He helped mic up the Dalai Lama once and said that he was extremely gracious. And he worked very closely with Bill King, sitting a couple rows back in the press box at the A's Stadium. I hung out there a lot because when you're an only child and both of your parents work full-time, every day is take your daughter to work day when childcare falls through. So I got to follow my dad around and see so many cool things and meet so many cool people, of which I had zero appreciation for. And honestly, my dad also just did not understand the privilege of his position in relation to these incredibly famous people. He never cared for sports, but he never missed an A's game, and he got to go with them to spring training. And when my friends at school would tell their parents about, oh, Evie's got all this cool A's stuff. Oh, she was in the press box last weekend. The other parents would come up to him and grill him. Oh my gosh, what is so-and-so like? How did you get this, blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, I'm sorry, I really don't like sports. He was so concerned with whether somebody had static in their headset, whether everybody could be heard at equal volumes from their many separate microphones, sometimes spread across several time zones. He didn't really have the time to get into what he was watching every single day. I know that my dad also really had aspirations of being a DJ from the time he was very young. He got to live that dream for a short time on KUSF, 90.3 FM, RIP. He went under the name Ray Michaels and had the After Midnight Oldies show, and used to tell me anecdotes about broadcasting from lowriders and getting letters from San Quentin where people were asking him to play their loved one a song and dedicate it to them. And this passion for radio started really young. He would tell me stories about being under the covers with his crystal radio, trying to tune in and see what far-off station he could get a signal of. And then he would send the DX postcards to every place he could hear, and they would write back to him. And we still have the collection of those postcards with the little sign-offs on them. When he was 12 years old, he was on a class field trip and got to use a printing press for the first time. And I actually have the thing he printed, and I'd like to read it for you. Good timing. My full name is Michael Ray Schweitzer. I was born on February 6th, 1953 at Mount Zion Hospital. My favorite food is pizza. My hobby is electronics. Currently, I am working on a speaker enclosure to house my yet unpunctured speakers. I think Radio KYA is the best on the dial. I hope to become a telephone man when I grow up. And he really did all of that. So thank you so much once again for having me here on his behalf. Thank you to David Jackson for finding me on Facebook and for giving me, my mother, Susan, and my husband, Ryan, lovely seats here. It's been great to hear all of you talk about your experiences and finally put some faces to the names and voices that I've been hearing my dad talk about for all these years. So thank you so much.
All right, so our next inductee to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame. Oh, actually, no. We already did that. Okay. Okay, well, this is where I say thank you to everybody. So thank you to all of the 2023 Barhoff inductees. Another round of applause for Sylvia Chacon. Also, Jack Friday, Kim Vestal, Bob Butler, Monty Moore, Chuck Tweedle, and Mike Schweitzer. I also want to personally say thank you to John and Rosie. I was very nervous to do this today, just because of just the caliber of broadcasters that are in this room right now. And just thank you so much for your encouragement. I had a wonderful, wonderful time. And also to Don Blue, who I'm about to bring up right now. He gave me some tips too. Also, I didn't know that he was on the Gong Show. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that Don Blue hosted the Gong Show? That's pretty awesome. All right, we now recognize 7 legendary pioneer broadcasters whose work made a major contribution to Bay Area radio in the decades past and present. So with the honors, here is Bay Area Radio Hall of Famer, class of 2007, Don Blue.
I know it's getting late. We only have 31 more inductees. Should be out of here by, what is today? It was wonderful, by the way, to see my friend Sylvia Chacon come into the Hall of Fame. Very special. Also, people like Fresca who are carrying on. I mean, we're the old guys, and we look back and go, oh, it was great back then, but they're going to make it great also. So congratulations to the people who are moving in and taking over and taking names and kicking ass. Nicely done. We now are going to honor a group of broadcasters whose work cemented the Bay Area's reputation as a major market loaded with great talent. These people, by the way, if you looked at their fingers, you're going to see hundreds of little cuts from where they were editing tape. I think some of us in this room still have those little cuts on our fingers. It was a great time to be in radio. So these are people whose work paved the way for generations that followed here in the modern era of Bay Area broadcasting. We're going to induct the following new members of the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame as a group. They are Larry Brownell, Sonny Buxton, Les Crane, Stan Dunn, Bob Foster, John Hardy, and Ron Reynolds. Now, sadly, 5 of these 7 pioneers have passed on, but 2 are still with us, and 1 will be joining us today. And with a name like Sonny, you got to be either a cowboy, a musician, or an athlete. Well, Sonny Buxton was not a cowboy, but he was a Raider. Sonny Buxton made a name for himself beginning in the 50s as a reporter and talk show host at KGO. His real passion was as a jazz musician and Stanford music professor. He played in nightclubs and even owned one. He was an ambassador for the music that has been part of his life for 8 decades. Sonny is a certified hero of jazz, an honor that he earned from the Jazz Journalists Association in 2013 for his work behind the microphone at KCSM in San Mateo. And by the way, you can still hear Sonny today, probably on the air this morning, I believe, as he hosts a Saturday morning jazz show on KCSM. Seriously? And by the way, Sonny is probably the only musician that when you say, oh yeah, what did you play? He says, cornerback. For 5 seasons, Sonny played defensive back for the Oakland Raiders. Seriously! Ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee in the Pioneer category, Sonny Buxton!
Well, what a pleasure it is to be here. I was listening to all what people had to say, reminded me of the beginning. Some years ago in the 1950s, 1956, I had been an intern or a trainee and this at KFWB in Los Angeles. I was just a kid. So anyway, I trained, and so they said, I think you're ready to get on the air now. And you're going to be a booth announcer. So that was during the period that we had huge studios. So my first encounter in the studio was Lionel Hampton and his orchestra. So all I really had to do was say, now, ladies and gentlemen, Lionel Hampton. So I'm upstairs. The floor is down below. And Lionel Hampton was quite a showman. So he's grinning and he's moving around and I'm nervous. And this is it. This is my debut. It's noontime. I have an engineer with me, and Hamp is waiting for the signal, and he's grinning and he's going to give his downbeat to the orchestra. And so I'm waiting. I'm looking at the clock, and so the second hand's coming up to the top at 12 o'clock. And so the engineer looks at me, and we open the mic. We're ready to go, and nothing comes out. I could not say a word. And Hamp is waiting, and he's waiting, and and the band's behind him, and I couldn't say anything. And it felt like 10 minutes. It was probably about 30 seconds, but it felt like 10 minutes. And fortunately, the booth announcer was a combo guy, so he took over. That was my beginning. I never forgot that. I've also never forgotten having an interview with George C. Wallace for CBS Radio. And so I was going to get this segregationist. 1967, and I couldn't wait. Special assignment. You're going to spend 30 minutes with George Wallace. And boy, talk about not being ready. In my mind, it was Sonny against George. I was a news guy, and I forgot about that. So to this day, I always think of George C. Wallace. When I'm on the air, I said, boy, it was terrible. We got that on the air, but I kept listening to it. I blew everything. I didn't know what was going on in Alabama. I didn't know what was going on with George Wallace. As you may remember, he was a 4-time governor of Alabama, 4-time candidate for a U.S. presidency, and he was pretty slick. And all I could think of was getting this guy. I wanted to bury him. I didn't have any facts, figures, or anything together. So it was something that was terrible, but I've forgotten it. So to this day, when I'm on the air, and I'm able to breathe when I'm on the air, by the way, excuse me, I think about George Wallace. And so I'm still looking for that perfect program, looking for the show when I don't screw up, when I don't mess up something. But so that was 1967, and I can't forget it. Now, there's another name that I want to bring into the fold here. His name is Cosmo. Cosmo was my imaginary playmate, my alter ego, and Cosmo sticks with me. So no matter what I'm doing on the air, there's always Cosmo, little Cosmo, and he was sort of an irascible kind of a guy, and if you looked at him the wrong way, he would probably punch you in the mouth. But he was always the guy. Since I was an only child, my mother would come in to get me. I didn't do it. It was Cosmo. So there was a time when I was managing a radio station in Seattle, and my afternoon guy, drive time man, was arrested by the FBI while he was on the air. That's a hell of an experience. So I'm suddenly the afternoon drive time guy. This is an upbeat program. It's not my style. So I'm talking with the owner of the station. He says, well, you got to do it until you get somebody else. I said, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do that afternoon drive? I said, that's just not me. He said, well, it's going to be. So I got the message. And so I remembered Cosmo. So with the help of one of the guys in the sales department, we put a voice together. And so Cosmo became my alter ego again. So I would play some things that I didn't like. I couldn't identify with them. And so Cosmo we had this little voices, different voices that we put on tape. So Cosmo's voice would come and say, man, don't play that no more. That was a drag. So I was a straight guy. Well, Cosmo became very popular. We started doing billboards. We did various products. And largely because of Cosmo, I went into television that same year, 1967, and we moved on. Happy to be in the business, still there. I guess I'll stick around until Cosmo comes in and says to take a trip. So thank you so much. Great to be here. See you again.
Welcome, Sonny Buxton. I think Sonny's idea is one we should all adapt. It may be screwed up, but as long as it's arable. We're good. How was your show? It was arable. We're good. Our next pioneer in the class of 2023 is Stan Dunn. Stan Dunn arrived at K-Jazz in Alameda in 1967. As a morning host, he carried the venerable station to its end in 1994. Now, for a while, he kept the spirit of K-Jazz alive on cable and online for jazz fans around the world. Stan Dunn also worked at KCSM, at the early incarnation of beautiful music on KFOG, on KRON, K-R-O-N, KRON as in Chronicle, which later became Coit, as in Coit Tower, or Coit Carpet Cleaning. Also was on the air for K101 and KNBR. He is not here today, but please welcome 2023 Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Stan Dunn. Looks happy. Unfortunately, our next 5 pioneers are no longer with us. Larry Brownell, Les Crane, Bob Foster, John Hardy, and Ron Reynolds. I put a little tribute together for them. It's actually from Jim Carroll's 1980s hit, People Who Died. Now, it's kind of a poem. I hope you don't find it irreverent. After all, these were radio pioneers. Their whole career was irreverent. It's what they built their careers on. They pushed the envelope, and this is their story. Larry Brownell came along with Russ the Moose. Les Crane, The Hungry Eye, Fast and Loose. Bob Foster wrote about the DJ. John Hardy, First Black on KYA. Ron Reynolds, Beatles intro, 65. I wish that all our pioneers were still alive, but these are people who died. They made the radio into what we love, and now they're looking down on us from up above. They made the radio into what we love, and now they're looking down on us from up above. Larry Brownell. Larry Brownell came to San Francisco from Buffalo, New York. After Bartell Broadcasting became the new owner of KYA, AM, and FM, Larry made the trek west along with 3 other Bartell stars in Buffalo, Gene Nelson, Tommy Saunders, and Russ the Moose Syracuse. So that'd be like the Kansas City Chief buying the 49ers, then bringing in Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, replace what we got. Well, anyway, in short order, KYA became a top 40 powerhouse in the early 60s. Larry quickly became an integral part of the Bay Area news scene. Larry stayed with KYA FM and its new AM counterpart KSFO until his retirement in 1994. Larry Brownell died in August of 2004. So welcome, Larry, to the Radio Hall of Fame. Les Crane was a member of the early days of Top 40 on 1260 KYA in the 60s. Back then, listeners knew him as Johnny Raven. Hey, it's Johnny Raven. But a few years later, he helped usher in the era of news talk radio dominance at KGO, where as Les Crane, he interviewed celebrities in the city's coolest nightclub, the Hungry Eye. That's where Bill Cosby honed his craft. Not sure which craft. Les Crane was also a network talk show host who went head-to-head with Johnny Carson. He was a Grammy winner in 1971, recording his poem called Desiderata, which I played it, I never could pronounce it right. And now Desidero, and now Distinguiata, Desiderata. Les also was the husband of Tina Louise, Ginger, from Gilligan's Island. Ginger or Marianne? Well, he always voted Ginger. Les Crane died in July of 2008. Welcome, Les Crane, to the Hall of Fame. Bob Foster spent more than 40 years as a newspaper columnist covering radio and TV. One of his big stories was the launch of KPIX-TV in 1948. Foster's daily column in the San Mateo Times included interviews, news, criticism, and gossip about what's happening on Bay Area radio and TV. He was a frequent guest on KGO Radio. Bob Foster died in 2000. Welcome, Bob Foster, to the Hall of Fame. John Hardy studied stage and radio acting at Columbia College in Chicago, the city in which he got his start in broadcasting. After a stop in New Orleans, John came to the Bay Area in 1955 and worked at R&B pioneer KSAN and later at the Soul of the Bay, KDIA. In the early 70s, John was the first black disc jockey at Top 40 KYA. He joined the staff of KSFO in the late 70s. John Hardy died in 2002. Welcome, John Hardy, to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame. And Ron Reynolds was described as a master broadcaster. His voice was his calling card at KEWB, KNEW, KNBR, and All News KCBS, where he was an anchor and the voice of the station's imaging. One of his favorite gigs was bringing the Beatles to the stage at the Cow Palace in 1965. Ron Reynolds died in 2022. He's hanging out now with John and George. Ron Reynolds, Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame, welcome. So let us congratulate once again the pioneer inductees to the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame, class of 2023. Sonny Buxton, Stan Dunn, John Hardy, Bob Foster, Les Crane, Larry Brownell, and Ron Reynolds. Welcome. Looks like Len's making his way to the stage, ladies and gentlemen. Playing the part of Peter Cleveland this afternoon.
Close the show. That ends our induction ceremonies for 2023. And I have the reminder that we have the Legends annual holiday party, December 8th, Friday, December 8th, 2023, right here at the Basque Cultural Center. And as you leave, please take off your badges and put them in the boxes at the front. Thank you, David Jackson, for your hand salute. Yeah, so please take these out front. There's boxes to put them in. And thanks again for making this a sellout performance. Drive carefully.
The sound of the city, the sounds that are heard in San Francisco are mixed with daylight's glimmering rays and moonbeams shimmering glow. When darkness settles on the city, homeward people on their way. softly in the stillness, fog creeping slowly across the bay. Hear the sound of the city, the sounds that are heard inside.